Hey, folks, today is Wednesday, October 17th, 2018. This is Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Memphis, site of the 27th Annual Freedom Awards, sponsored by the National Civil Rights Museum. Over the next hour, we'll be talking with a number of the honorees here, including Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., who is being honored here. There's also going to be a special tribute to the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. Several of her grandchildren will also be here. We'll also talk with leaders here in Memphis. Of course, all the focus in Memphis this year has been on the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so also we'll be hearing from Bill Lucy, one of the great labor leaders who was involved with the sanitation workers strike in 1968, which was the reason Dr. King came here to Memphis. We've got a fascinating hour. You want to sit right there and hold tight. Roland Martin Unfiltered. It's time to bring the funk. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
All right, folks, Roland Martin here. I am broadcasting you live from Memphis, of course, at the National Civil Rights Museum, having their 27th Annual Freedom Awards taking place right here at the Halloran Center for Performing Arts and Education. And so let me just show you what's going on here. Folks are assembling here. And so if you look all over here, you're seeing folks sitting out here on the couches. You've got music that's going on as well. You got a DJ, of course. This is the red carpet that's taking place here. Folks are going to be walking down this carpet for the next hour or so. And so we're going to be talking to many of the attendees who are here. Among the honorees this year, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., of course, who was here 50 years ago when Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated here in Memphis. And also Vice President Joe Biden, also one of the honorees. We were here earlier this year in Memphis for all of the events surrounding the assassination of Dr. King. We live streamed, of course, for a 3.5-day period. And so one of the things that you'll see here, and again, so let's take the camera right over here. But one of the things that you'll see here, you'll see all over. You'll see the I Am a Man signs here, and also Justice for All. the I Am a Man, of course, those were the signs that the sanitation workers wore during that strike in 1968. So you see it, on the that background there where you have the bar. You also see where you have the DJ as well, and so you see it all inside as well. And so, as I said, everything is everybody's been talking about Memphis all year. Of course, we also live streamed the opening of the I Am a Man Plaza, which was dedicated to the sanitation workers, just located right across from Claiborne Temple, where many of those meetings took place in 1968 when the sanitation workers when they went on strike. Of course, that was in February of 1968, and it was Reverend Dr. James Lawson, who was a preacher here in Memphis, who was the one who they authorized to make the call to Dr. King to come to Memphis. Last week in Los Angeles, I had a sit-down conversation with Reverend Dr. James Lawson. I can't wait to show you that conversation. And so we've spent this year talking to any number of leaders all across the organization, all across people who were familiar with Dr. King, who were associates of Dr. King as well. And so we had a great time talking with them, really getting an understanding, really, of course, of what that pier was about, what the movement was about. And so that was one of the things that, again, we were in terms of talking with them. And so one of the folks who we talked with, Bill Lucy, of course, a major labor leader who came here from Michigan. We sat down with him as well. We're going to have some of that interview with him a little bit later. And so in just a second, I'm going to be talking, of course, with Terry Freeman. She, of course, is the president of the National Civil Rights Museum. And a lot of people assume that this museum is really about Memphis. But in fact, of course, it is a national museum located not far from here, of a site formerly known as Luray Motel, where Dr. King was assassinated, again, on April 4th, 1968. And so what is happening here, of course, every year they have these Freedom Awards that take place here. People come from all over the country. And so folks are lined up there. And so one of the things that is also, I think, is important, the role that Memphis played, because too often what people do is, when they are having these discussions about Dr. King's assassination, they spend so much time talking about what took place. Of course, his speech at Mason Temple on April 3rd, 1968, and of course, the assassination on April 4th. Folks forget why he was here, and that is those sanitation workers, those black men, about 1,100 black men who went on strike, demanding respect, demanding dignity from officials from the city of Memphis. And so that's why you see the I Am a Man signs are all over here. And in fact, there are some of those workers who are still on the workforce, who are still working for the sanitation department 50 years later. And so we had a great time talking with some of them when we were here in March. So we're looking forward to that. And so, in just 1 second, so when Terry comes down, of course, first of all, you got somebody who's walking up here. See, to his part of the problem when you're on red carpet, see folks just walk up on you like whatever. Of course, so you got Pam Alexander here, of course, with Ford Cares. And so, Pam, you also on the board of the National Civil Rights Museum.
Board of the National Civil Rights Museum, and we are a major donor at Ford Motor Company of the museum.
And so this, of course, 27th year, they're having this, and obviously one of the honorees, Reverend Doctor, not Reverend Doctor, we just call him Reverend. We just call him Reverend, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we partner with Rainbow Push, and he has done so much for civil rights that it's just great to see him here back in Memphis and getting this honor from the museum. It's tremendous in the reaction today from the kids this morning at the student lecture. We don't realize what a global superstar he is here in this country. You know, there were people at the museum who were just waiting outside saying, I heard he's in there, I heard he's in there. You know, so just globally, he is really recognized for everything he's done. It's good to see you too, Roland.
Absolutely.
You're always at our events.
Well,
always.
You got to do that. And for the folks, so what Pam was talking about, of course, the awards is happening tonight. But earlier today, they had a student symposium taking place, and there were any number of students. I was actually on the Civil Rights Museum. I was on their Twitter feed. You can go to the Instagram feed. You'll see some of the video as well. Of course, and when we talk about that, why is it important to? Sure, you have the awards here, but to link, frankly, old and new.
You know, it is important. And one of the questions that one of the kids asked was, how do you define activism? And he said, you already have the right to vote. So voting is not activism, it's your responsibility. I'm paraphrasing here. But he said, but fighting for other people's right to vote is activism. You have to be fighting for something that someone needs or someone doesn't have. You know, and it was interesting because that's the link, right? Because this generation has read about Reverend Jackson, they've heard about Reverend Jackson, but to actually be hearing from him what does it mean to be an activist to someone my age? That's why you got to bring those two together, or else we don't carry on.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right. See you. Okay.
All right, then. And so, again, folks, if you actually go to the National Civil Rights Museum, you go to their Twitter feed, if you actually go to their Instagram page as well, you can actually see some of those videos of the student forum as well. Also, if you look at the, use the hashtag 27th Freedom Award, so you can use that as well. And so, it's one great to be here to actually see so many of our officials here and to talk to them, because one of the things that is also critically important, that it is also to give our greats their flowers while they are here. As I said, Aretha Franklin is going to be honored here. Kirk Whalum, of course, who is from Memphis. Kirk was going to be a part of that tribute as well. I saw him just a few moments ago. We'll be chatting with him in just a bit. And so right now we're going to go to a break. And then when we come back, we'll chat with more folks here on the red carpet from the 27th Annual Freedom Awards of the National Civil Rights Museum. This is Roland Martin Unfiltered, live from Memphis.
I must thank you for this great honor.
I guess this takes blinging to a whole new level.
Tonight, you've made me feel like the cuts and bruises and scars of the communities that I stand for, the communities that I represent, are being honored, and for that, I'm extremely grateful.
It's a reminder that the work isn't done, that the reporting isn't done, that the digging for stories and different voices isn't done.
The National Civil Rights Museum every day helps to make America a more perfect union.
I thank you so much for this award.
Thank you for this award.
Thank you.
There comes a time that one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politically correct, nor popular, but one must take a position because his conscience tells him it's the right thing to do.
It's easy to see that this photo belongs in a museum, preserved from the past. If only the ideas behind it could be a thing of the past as well. This photo is in black and white, historical, iconic. We study it so that we don't repeat the mistakes of our past. The signs that divided us long ago have only changed their words, not their meaning. The struggles that started long before us continue today. But we've come too far to turn back now. The National Civil Rights Museum honors our past so that we may continue the work for our future. Through the telling of this American story, we examine the issues that plague us today, illuminating the need for civil rights, for global human rights. Because history has shown us you can make a difference. The National Civil Rights Museum, today's public square, serving as a catalyst for positive change. Be a part of that change.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered here in Memphis from the 27th Annual Freedom Awards, sponsored by the National Civil Rights Museum. And so, again, the red carpet is taking place right now. In just a second, we're about to grab Terry Freeman here. Of course, she is the president of the museum. And so, hey, what's going on? How you doing? You all good? Step right on up here. So, first of all, you should feel good about today.
Yes, I do. I really do. It's always a wonderful evening. The Freedom Award is really an opportunity to bring some of not just the nation's, but the world's best to Memphis and highlight the work that they have been doing in civil and human rights. And I don't think this year is any different.
Why'd you choose the three honorees this year?
Each of them had a connection to 1968, which is our theme. And we thought it was really important to find a mix. But, years past, we've been able to honor a lot of what I would call the icons of the movement. Most of them have already been honored. Many of them are no longer with us. Reverend Jackson is still here. He hadn't been honored. It was time. And he's got such an illustrious career when it comes to civil rights. Vice President Biden, he graduated from law school the day Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated. It made a huge impact on him, and we know what he's done. And Pitt Hyde, who actually was kind of thrust into this in 1968 because he had to take over the company, was picketed by, folks who were upset with how the grocer was handling their employment issues. That's when he met Maxine Smith from the NAACP. They became fast friends, and he's been in it since then and really focused on education reform as well. So we just thought they were very, very worthy honorees.
You obviously have had so much attention on the museum this year because of the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination. What are your plans moving forward as we move away from many of the historical civil rights anniversaries?
Right. So first off, yes, it's a history museum, but it's history, frankly, that continues to move forward, right? We're in these cycles. Look at where we are right now. I would say that we're in a new civil rights movement. So I think that there's a lot of the work left undone that we talked about at the 50th that continues to move forward. I think these historic elections that we are looking at, this election cycle with 3 African-American gubernatorial candidates, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. And so as we move forward, I expect that the museum is going to kind of try to bring this fast forward to 2018, what's going on now and what we need to be doing in the future. That's what makes the museum, frankly, come to life. It's not just about what we show, it's about how we connect it to what's happening to today.
There's a placard that's in the museum, and it's from a 18-year-old girl, and it says, all I want for my 18th birthday is a voter registration card. We are seeing, obviously, a renewed interest when it comes to voting. We're also still seeing massive voter suppression take place as well. And so here we are 50 years later, 53 years after the Voting Rights Act, and we're still, literally fighting the same thing. It happened in Georgia on Monday where, again, 30 senior citizens who are African-American were going to get on the bus, the Black Votes Matter vote, and an elected official calls it, I don't like that, take them off of the bus.
Absolutely. We have, for the past 3 or 4 months, really been focused on Be Loud, Vote. Use your vote. We've been registering people. We've been working with other nonprofits to help educate about voting and what that is and why it's so important for people not just to register, but to actually get to the polls and vote. This whole voter suppression thing is incredibly concerning. It didn't just happen in Georgia. It happened here in Memphis for the elections that were happening in August, where they tried to shut down many of the early voting sites in predominantly African-American communities. And the NAACP came together and said, this is not going to stand, and went to court and won. So we know that these things are continuing, and they're going to continue. This is 2018, 2020, we're going to have some of the same issues. So we have to really stay on top of it.
All right, we really appreciate it. Thank you so very much. All right, good seeing you. Likewise, thanks a bunch. I appreciate it. Good. All right, then. All right, folks, again, it is just slide right that way. There we go. There we go right there. And so, again, one of the things that we have been talking about on our show, Roland Martin Unfiltered, is the issue of voting. And that was really one of the things that was really focused on today with the students as well, really getting the next generation to understand the impact and the power of voting. And so when I talk about that particular placard, tell you, of all the things at the museum, that's the one thing that still is etched in my mind since the first time I actually visited, because when you see that, all I want for my 18th birthday is a voter registration card. That is a powerful, powerful statement that's made. Again, we got more folks who are coming down here as well, including grandchildren of Aretha Franklin. They are here. There's going to be a tribute to the Queen of Soul tonight. I was listening to the sound check. It is going to be an amazing sound check. And also, so let me let all the folks know who are watching. And so the tribute here, this actually event is not going to be, it's not broadcast or live stream, but they're going to provide it to us. So this weekend Roland Martin Unfiltered, on all of our channels, Periscope, YouTube, and Facebook, we will stream this entire award ceremony. So you will see all of that. And so we're looking forward to that. And so we appreciate the National Civil Rights Museum inviting us here to, one, broadcast the show live from the red carpet. No other national media outlet is here. No other black website, no other black media company is out here doing this. And so they understand the importance of our platform, and we surely appreciate in terms of what they were able to do. And so here you got Gwendolyn, of course, who's a longtime publicist for Aretha Franklin. So come on over. How you doing? You all good? Step right on up. Just step right here.
I need one of these,
all right, so, oh, yeah.
Get
all right. How you doing? Step right on up. How's it going? All right, so for all the folks that are watching, we're going to start on this side. Tell everybody your name.
Jordan Franklin. I'm Aretha's grandson.
Hi, I'm Victory Franklin, granddaughter.
Kel Franklin, son.
All right, then. And so, obviously, tonight, there's going to be a tribute to the Queen of Soul. And just your thoughts about, again, just the continuing outpouring of love and affection for Mom, for grandmother. Who wants to talk first?
It's just been very inspiring. You know, it's been a crazy couple months, so it's definitely therapeutic to see all the love, all the texts, all the posts. And, you know, definitely appreciative to be in a city like this and celebrating such an amazing woman.
Just like you said, inspiring and motivational to just keep pushing whenever things get tough. So I appreciate it so much.
Just grateful for all the love and all the support and the outpouring from the people all around the world.
And one of the things that we've also been hearing from people, because for so many people, they knew about music, but now people really, I think, understand and appreciate the activism of the Queen in her commitment to black people.
Next to the red carpet. Anybody who knew her knew that she stood for black people proud, and I appreciate that, and I just love how much she advocated for our people, for black women, with her platform. So
yeah, I think I spoke on it a little bit earlier, but I think, you know, what she did, especially in the time that she did it, for black people and for women, I think is extremely admirable. And something about my grandma is, she never talked about what she was doing. She was more about her action. And so a lot of people don't know about the things she stood up for and the social injustice she stood up for. But that's what we're here for, to let that be brought to light.
And obviously, again, when you talk about that level of activism, when you see folks today, getting involved. I mean, whether it's Aretha Franklin, whether it's Ruby Dee, whether it's Ossie Davis, Harriet Belafonte. I mean, you have a long line of African Americans who understood that they were more than just entertainers. And so when you hear Laura Ingraham say to LeBron James, just shut up and dribble, and he says, no, I'm not going to do that. I mean, this is a long history of black folks saying we will use our art to also speak to our issues.
Correct. I think that should be an ongoing process. We have to stand up for ourselves. We have to show that we will be respected at all times and that we will not just shut up and dribble. We have something to offer, and it's to be respected.
All right, then. Well, it's certainly good to see y'all. I heard some of the sound check a little bit earlier. It's going to be an amazing tribute, and so we're looking forward to it. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. All right, then. So again, folks, the son as well as the grandson and granddaughter of the late Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. So we're looking forward to that tribute. Trust me, it is going to be an amazing tribute. Also, again, as I said earlier, Kirk Whalum is one of the folks. Of course, he is from Memphis. Internationally known saxophonist, my favorite artist. I tell everybody, anything Kirk puts out, I buy first. And so we can't wait to also chat with him on the red carpet as well. Again, we'll also be hearing from some of the honorees, and so we can't wait to do that as well. But we're going to do this here. Before we do that, I was in Memphis earlier this year preparing for MLK 50. And we had an opportunity to sit down with Bill Lucy. For many of you, you likely have never heard of Bill Lucy. We think about our civil rights greats. Of course, we know about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We know about Andrew Young. We know about Hosea Williams and Reverend Jackson. We know about, to some, Diane Nash and others. But the reality is, there were other people, the likes of Reverend Dr. James Lawson and Bill Lucy, who played a huge role when it came to the issue of civil rights. Ask anybody in the labor movement and they know exactly who Bill Lucy is. And so here was our conversation that took place at the National Civil Rights Museum with the great labor leader, Bill Lucy.
Bill, being in here, being Memphis, the meetings, the conversations, all of these things, what does it bring you back to?
Well, it brings me back, Roland, to a point in my life where I learned the value of men who worked hard, yet the system denied them an opportunity just to be men. And I look at the photographs on the wall and think back as to what these men risked just to be treated with respect and dignity. And for me, it made the argument that I was one of the lucky ones. Really sort of standing on their shoulders, having an opportunity to not only help them be better men, but helping workers in general understand what it meant to struggle for just an opportunity to raise a family, to be a breadwinner, and to be treated with respect and dignity for the work that you did. And that's an incredibly humbling experience. But it also provided me with an opportunity to be able to talk this message and take this message and this movement to other people in other places.
Where were you in 68? Were you based here? Were you working elsewhere? How did you come to play a role in the sanitation workers strike and what was happening in Memphis?
I was assigned here from Detroit, Michigan, the day of the strike. I arrived here the night of the 11th and was on the line with the men as they decided not to go to work the morning of the 12th. So from day one, I was here. The strike lasted 67 days. I had the highest parking bill for short-term parking in the history of the organization. I parked at the Detroit airport short-term because it looked like it was only be 2 or 3 days. I came back 67 days with a $500 short-term parking bill. So, this was for not just black workers, but the lowest paid of black workers, an incredible struggle that they decided to take. It was not something that the union decided for them. They had simply spent enough time working with a lack of respect that they felt themselves they were entitled to, and they decided what they were going to do. And in contrast to a lot of the glory statements, what they said was, we want two things. We want to build a union, and we want the workers to afford that union so it could do what we wanted it to do. And that was the story that underlined this whole struggle. And for myself and other staff people, we learned a valuable lesson from them. I cherish the time I had to work with these men and respect them as men, which was a part of their struggle.
What was it about them that was different than other folks you work with who were trying to fight for their labor rights? Was there something different about them?
There was something fundamentally different about them. There's that piece in the Bible that talks about the poor being with you always, but nobody ever said they're going to be the same group. These were men who recognized that they had a job to do. He was proud to do it. They had families to raise. They were committed to raising their families with all of the difficulties that they experienced. They simply wanted to be treated as men and respected for what they did. There's an incredible religious community. Men committed to showing up every morning, working very hard, irritated by the fact that they couldn't get a simple problem solved. We weren't talking about 50 cents more an hour or $5 more. We were just simply talking about the issues that generated disrespect in them as they worked. And they felt that the organization they were trying to form would really give them help in addressing some of these issues. I mean, they didn't think it guaranteed victory, but they thought that it gave them a voice in those decisions that affected their work life. And ultimately, I guess, their social life also.
Where did the I Am a Man come from?
Well, we were about 3 to 4 weeks into the strike. This was not an economic strike. This was a strike about respect and about being treated with dignity. And
because when I talked to someone, they said they couldn't take bathroom breaks. They couldn't take. It was several things they talked about. They had nothing. That wasn't about money.
No, they couldn't wash up. At the end of the day, they had to go home just like they had worked all day. There was no such thing as lunch breaks. I mean, you had to. It was just a bad situation. We reflected, and not only poor management, but poor acceptance of the responsibility of management. And these men were paying the price for those who supervised them, lacking either in commitment or sensitivity. And we tried to think through what is it that would reflect not only their commitment to this, but what is it that motivated them. There was a white pastor of the church, Cleveland Temple, a young fellow by the name of Malcolm Blackburn. After one of the real difficult days, he and I were tasked with trying to come up with some slogan that would symbolize this. So many of the pastors, so many of the community leaders had talked about the difficulties that these men work with once they themselves learned. And so we took some of their speeches, some of their slogans, some of their comments, and we just put a whole lot of words on the table to try and see what we could come up with that would be simple and short. So after maybe 2 hours worth of working with it, we came up with the slogan, I am a man. And it sort of reflected what we thought their commitment to this struggle was. They simply wanted to be treated as men. And, you know, across the South, you could go from boy to uncle to grandpa without ever landing on the position of a man. And so when we put that on a sign, we had a march scheduled for the next day. We came up with that sign the night. The sign was printed in the print shop of the AME church. So when men saw them the next morning, folks were running, I want a sign like that. I want that kind of sign to put around my neck when we march.
So why the underline of am?
Well, speaking personally, I am. And if you think for a moment, these are the lowest of the low paid. These are garbage men. I made friends with a fellow by the name of Ed Gillis. He had worked for the city for 20 years. He earned $7.80 a day. And he wasn't complaining about it. I mean, he was much more committed to getting a resolution to a today problem. He'd worry about the rest of it later on. But it gave him a sense of pride. And for the work that they did, they simply want to be respected for it. And I had an interview with a reporter, and I said, when's the last time you told your garbage man thank you? You know, when's the last time you told him you appreciate what he does? And folks said, well, I never thought about it. And that was almost symptomatic of the conditions that these men had. And that was across the city. It wasn't uniquely to the white community or the black community. They didn't get respect from anybody because nobody understood what they did. Most of us, we put the garbage out back and we figure it just disappears. And the fact that they wanted to be respected for what they did and to be treated as a man. And that became a piece of glue that you couldn't change to this day.
All right, folks, welcome back to the red carpet, the 27th Annual Freedom Awards put on by the National Civil Rights Museum. So let's check this out. So let's say you are here and you're taking photos or things along those lines, but then you want to be able to print your photos. So what you can do is you can utilize one of our sponsors, freeprints.com. They are one of the top photo services, bar none, more than 100,000 five-star ratings. You can download their app from Google Play or even from the iTunes store as well. And again, for a very nominal fee, you can get 1,000 prints of 4x6s. And so again, a lot of people still want to use actual photos, and because as opposed to just always being able to email somebody or text it to them. And so what you do is download the app, freeprints.com. Download their app. then you're able to actually print photos directly from Instagram, from Twitter, or from Facebook as well. And so for me, look, I got lots of fans, and so they want me to autograph photos. A little hard to autograph a digital photo, and so use freeprints.com and do this here. When they ask how'd you hear about it, put in the code Roland. Put in the code Roland. That's the special code that you use, so they know exactly that our viewers, our fans, are actually utilizing the service. So again, freeprints.com. Download the app from Google Play, from iTunes as well. All right, folks, as I said, we're here in Memphis in about 30 to 45 minutes. Of course, the 27th Annual Freedom Awards will actually begin, and the person who is actually hosting the Freedom Awards is Michaela Angela Davis. And of course, Michaela, she is a journalist, she's activist, she's all that sort of stuff, and she doesn't like perms.
Welcome to the red carpet.
She's Miss Art Natural. What's happening?
What's up? How are you?
Oh, so you got the black and gold memo?
Yes, I did. I got my Dapper Dan memo.
Oh, yes, your Dapper Dan memo. Okay, but you know, we've been in the alpha. You know, it's black and gold.
Okay, I got it. I'm so happy to match you, and I'm so happy to be on the carpet with you.
So you're hosting tonight?
I am. This is my second year, and what a year. Bro, like this was a destination. I felt like I was going to Disneyland. Like it's a destination to just get filled up with hope and history. And Memphis is like the heart of America, you know. And I feel like if we can get things right here, then we can get things right in America. And I was struck last year when I came here, understanding where Memphis sits in the country. It's Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi. Like, this is where poor white folks, poor black folks come together. So, yeah, and as Reverend Jackson said today, this is Calvary. You know, this is where we lost our king, but we found something else. And there's something powerful about being here. So, yeah.
Well, one of the things also, I mean, you're still dealing with a lot of these issues. I mean, recently they had a trial that took place where many of the activists in the city were being, spied upon, if you will, by the police department. You still have folks who are demanding equity and equality when it comes to contracts. The fact that you have this majority black city and you still have black folks who do not have their lion's share of contracts. And then you have this constant battle with, again, white leaders in Memphis controlling the economic levers, but then you have black numbers.
Yeah, it's like South Africa. It's like, you know, there are places, white economic power, white supremacy is a hard thing to undo. And I think even in our most progressive places, that's the American conundrum.
Yeah, because look, at the end of the day, look, America's about money. I tell everybody all the time, if you want to understand America, when you go to Washington, D.C., you look at the White House, there's a White House, there's only one federal agency sharing along the White House, Treasury Department. Power, money, money, power.
And all the decisions can be traced back to that, right? Like why, even here in Memphis, I was at the museum again today, and it just struck me about that 3 black men bought the Lorraine Motel, right? But so they had to do that in order to hold on to the actual space. But at the same time, down the road, there was a statue of a Seminole Klans member, a slave owner, and he was a triple threat. Right there in the middle, like a monument to him, right, you know, walking distance to the Civil Rights Museum. So that lets you know that they're clear, like, who's still in power here? Like, let's, you know, so that's the American contradiction. That what's interesting about this moment is it's all out, and we're talking about it in real time. That white power and white structures that have oppressed everybody, particularly poor white folks. And I think that's what's interesting about it.
And they don't even realize it.
They do not, because it was a strategy to make them feel that they were at least over black folks. Things are bad, things are hard, but at least you're not that. It's a diabolical but really genius strategy in how to keep money in people's pockets. I mean, you made poor white people overseers, and they still feel like they're overseers. But then when you move past them, meaning all the way to the White House. There's a lot of resentment, a lot of we're gonna hold on to at least this. So it's a reckoning moment. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because the day started with some young people that are about it, doing work, working around folks, not really so interested in deconstructing the system, but creating new ones. So I'm filled with hope. But you know, I haven't turned on the news today. I haven't.
You like something's happening today.
I know. I haven't looked at my social media feed. I don't know what's going on. I just wanted to be in this moment. So, yeah.
Last question for you. We, of course, have a midterm elections coming up. And it was very interesting in this state when Taylor Swift came out and said that she was supporting the Democratic nominee for United States Senate. And folks lost their mind because they thought, oh, she was appealing to white conservatives. Then, of course, you have the number of African Americans who are not asking for permission, who are mobilizing and organizing, young men, young women, and they are making it clear because a lot of them, 1829, set out in 2016, and I think folks realize because they got caught up in two evils, Clinton, Trump, they're the same. Now all of a sudden they went, you know what? Now we realize that was dumb.
That was dumb, and it wasn't the lesser of two evils. It was crazy. It was one crazy and one. It was not, and that narrative that was the lesser of two evils was also a diabolical strategy. It was not equal. It was never even close. And they'd rather hold on to some kind of ideal than know that this. I mean, I don't think any of us knew how much of a hot mess it was going to be. We didn't know we were going to have children in cages. We didn't know that we were going to have kissing up to Putin. Like, we had no imagination for how messed up it was going to be. But I'm hoping that just as messed up as it is, it will get us more fired up. And I think for young people, women and women of color, they just running. We just gonna run.
Well, look, we ain't got no choice.
We do not. But we've always done that, Roland. We've always gotten up and strategized and figured it out. But I hope this time they figure out that you need to give, and particularly Black women need to lead. And here's why. Because we hold the intersections of complexity of race and gender and economics. So it's just more efficient to have more of us leading because we have a more well-rounded idea of how things work. And so if we want to get somewhere faster, just put more Black women in place. Simple. It's efficient. I just like.
It's efficient.
It is efficient. We really are. We hold the complexities of America. In our stories, we hold our families together, we hold our communities together, we hold our men down. We understand we're going to bring everybody to the table. We bring others with us in a much more natural way. We have to remind brothers, bring some people along because they're still operating in a patriarchal way. You know, from male privilege, we just make more space easier, faster. I'm not saying that brothers don't do it. I'm just saying we don't have that much time to waste. So just get more of us, just a little more equal.
All right. Looking forward to it.
All right. And what's our calling next year? What are we gonna do?
Huh?
What's our calling next year?
Well, I'll still be an alpha.
Okay.
You know, I might have the gold shoes next year. Though.
Okay. All right.
Instead of the gold socks.
I'll see that.
Yeah. I got the gold socks. Next year be the gold shoes.
Look at that.
I see.
See, they say Black people can't work together. We can work together when it comes to fashion.
You ain't got no sense, girl. I see you inside.
I do. I appreciate you.
I appreciate all. All right. Let's have a good night. I appreciate it. Again, folks, Michaela Angela Davis, she's going to be actually hosting. She'll be hosting the 27th Annual Freedom Awards here, put on by, of course, the National Civil Rights Museum. And so the deal, again, folks, so we're here on the red carpet. So as you see, so I showed this earlier, so y'all just tune in. So turn the cameras this way. And so what you see what's happening. So normally what happens is when you go to these events, they have folks who are all on the inside. But what you got here now, so let's have a different shot here. So you see, folks actually gathered out here. You've got like this party plaza out here. So they've got food over there. They've got drink. You got the DJ going over there. And you see, of course, Justice for All signs with the backdrop right there as well. Of course, you know, I'm a little bit upset because I'm over here on the red carpet and I'm smelling these Memphis ribs over there. So I had to go tell people, it's like, look, y'all set a plate aside for it, bro, because I got to do a little work. So that's one of the things that we actually said. And so Again, that's what's going on here. And so, as I said, so what's happening is, so if you see, folks are lined up here, all the way down. Keep going all the way down. So you see, folks are lined up, and then who are coming all down here. We're waiting to chat with Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Of course, he earlier today he was speaking to a group of students. He is one of the honorees here as well, along with Vice President Joe Biden. But right now, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back right here at live from Memphis. From the site of the 27th Annual Freedom Awards for the National Civil Rights Museum. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment.
It was the 31st of August in 1962 that 18 of us traveled 26 miles to try to register to become first-class citizens.
The National Civil Rights Museum is an American story. Sit with Rosa Parks on the Montgomery bus. Join the movement at the multi-touch, multi-user smart table. See where Dr. King spent his final hours. The National Civil Rights Museum. Visit, join, give.
All right, folks, welcome back to the 27th Annual Freedom Awards, sponsored by the National Civil Rights Museum. Joining us right now is one of the three honorees, Pitt Hyde. First of all, good to see you.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
First and foremost, 1968 obviously was a tumultuous year for this country, not only with Dr. King's assassination, but also Robert F. Kennedy. For you, you walked into quite the situation as well. So for folks who don't know, tell us about it.
68 was obviously a tragic year for our city and our country with the assassination of Dr. King. And it was also a significant year for me in many more ways in that I had just taken over as CEO of Malone and Hyde, our family business, because my father became ill. And so here I was at 26 trying to run this company, and we had this tragedy take place. One good thing that came out of 68 with me was that Maxine Smith, who was the head of the NAACP at the time, she was leading a group, and they were picketing their neighborhood supermarket, which happened to be one of our stores. And, you know, of course, I hadn't met Maxine at that point. All I knew about her is what I read in the press, and they painted her as a real radical. And so I approached this meeting with great trepidation. And to my pleasant surprise, in walked this charming, brilliant lady. In a few minutes, we worked out our differences, and then we became lifetime friends. And we worked on so many projects in this community over all those years together. So at least one good thing came out of that was the beginning of friendship like that. And that's what really got me involved in the civil rights movement, was my association with Maxine and our friendship.
Growing up here, you said you took over the family business at 26. Did you feel and understand the tensions, and also that these two different worlds existed, that your world as a 26-year-old white man was totally different than the world of a 26-year-old black man in Memphis?
That's true. And yes, I was totally involved in the whole thing because, you know, because of the protests and all that, I got to know every leader of every cause in the whole region, which was really opened my eyes to a lot of issues. And it made me more dedicated and a commitment to try to improve the lot of everyone in Memphis, and to get involved in the civil rights and the key issues that affect not only racial division, but also the level of poverty and economic differentiation in our community.
Last question. What must Memphis do in 2018 moving forward to make this a better city for its black residents, whether it's economic, whether it's education? What do you think needs to be done now?
I still believe Barbara and I and the foundation have been working on K through 12 education reform for 25 years. And it's been a long, slow progress, but we have made dramatic strides. We still have a long way to go. But really, that's the thing I'm most excited about, because nothing empowers the individual to be in a position to solve their own problems, both economically and every other respect, than a quality education. Because if a kid, no matter from how poverty situation they may come from, it's been shown put in the right classroom with the right teachers, they can be on a totally different path. And if they become that productive individual, they will get a good job, and then they'll come back and help their family and their neighbors and be a real contributing factor to help move Memphis forward. So both in the short run and the long run, to me, that's the most critical underpinning to ultimately solve poverty within our community.
All right. Pitt Hyde, congratulations on being the Freedom Award honoree. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Again, Pitt Hyde, one of the 3 honorees this year of the National Civil Rights Museum Freedom Award, along with Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and also Vice President Joe Biden. So, folks, again, we are still seeing folks come down. I'm going to be grabbing a couple other different people here. We're waiting for Reverend Jackson to arrive. And one of the things that I think is important, and you've been seeing this, where Reverend Jackson has been honored by a number of different people. As you know, Reverend Jackson had the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. And so he has been dealing with that. He's been battling with that. And I think one of the things that for so many of us, he recently celebrated his 78th birthday with a celebration in Los Angeles, but also one in Atlanta. And I think for so many people who they saw Reverend Jackson all over the place, they saw him attending so many different places, and so he was very familiar to so many of us. I think a lot of people really don't understand, as Pam Alexander Ford said earlier, how iconic, how global Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. is. Anybody, you talk to any of the folks who have worked with him, when he travels across the globe, when he travels overseas, I mean, he is received like a head of state. It was here, of course, in Memphis, April 4th, 1968. He was here at the Lorraine Motel when Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Dr. King sent Reverend Jackson to Chicago to be over Operation Breadbasket. That was the economic arm of the SCLC. What they did was they used their economic power to actually force businesses to provide opportunities for African Americans. If you get a chance, what you should do is, if you would go to iTunes, you can actually hear the speech that Dr. King gave to SCLC in August of 1967, where he gave his speech, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? And in that speech, Dr. King talked about breadbasket, talked about how they effectively use the threat of boycotts to get companies to change. There's this great story he tells about Seal Milk in Cleveland. They refused to do business with African Americans. And so what then happened was they began to target Seal Milk, began to launch protests. Well, that was a convenience store that had those products on the shelves. And so then they targeted those convenience stores. Bob Brown, of course, who worked for the company, also was working with Dr. King and SCLC. They arranged a meeting, and they met with the CEO of that particular company. Not only did he then tell Seal Milk, if you don't change your policies, we're going to remove your milk from those black stores. He said they were going to remove the milk from all of their stores across the state of Ohio. Guess what? They were able to have a deal. And so Reverend Jackson goes to Chicago. That's how they use breadbasket, also change the economic conditions. And so what maybe people don't understand is that many of your black millionaires, I'm talking about people who had food products, individuals who had hair products. They could not get their goods on store shelves with grocery stores, also convenience stores, drug stores. And so Breadbasket was the hammer, if you will, where they said, fine, if you don't do this, we're going to unleash all of these black churches against you. That's what Reverend Jackson did. Dr. King gave him those marching orders. And so what that did was it created literally multiple millionaires, black millionaires in Chicago, in New York, in Los Angeles, in the cities all across the South, because Dr. King understood the power of the pulpit and utilizing the churches. And so there's a great book on the history of Rainbow Push. I don't have it with the name with me right now. I'll have it for you. I'll tweet it out. But it's an unbelievable book that I think really need to understand. I think for a lot of us, we really don't understand Reverend Jackson's importance and the number of individuals, the number of families, the number of businesses that have been able to grow and thrive as a result of using that pressure being placed on so many of these companies. And so the fact of the matter is, he is still doing it. What many people also may not realize, when he was targeting Silicon Valley for 18 months, I had him on my syndicated radio show and my TV One show every Tuesday, hammering Silicon Valley, hammering Facebook and Apple and Twitter. And that's how they've been able to really change what has been happening there as well. And so there are a lot of people who say all sorts of things about Reverend Jackson, have been critical of him. I've been critical of him. I've been critical of him to his face. We've had these conversations. But I can tell you this, in my lifetime, and I'll be 50 years old on November 14th, there's been no African American. Let me repeat that. No African American who has been as important to the success of black people in America than Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. I don't care who you put up. The record is clear. And so we certainly appreciate, of course, National Civil Rights Museum honoring Reverend Jackson here as well. Folks, we'll go to a break right now. We come back, more from the red carpet here in Memphis, the 27th Annual Freedom Awards. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
It's easy to see that this photo belongs in a museum. If only the ideas behind it could be a thing of the past as well. The signs that divided us long ago have only changed their words, not their meaning. But we've come too far to turn back now. The National Civil Rights Museum honors our past, serving as a catalyst for positive change. Be a part of that change.
It was the 31st of August in 1962 that 18 of us traveled 26 miles to try to register to become first-class citizens.
The National Civil Rights Museum is an American story. Sit with Rosa Parks on the Montgomery bus. Join the movement at the multi-touch, multi-user smart table. See where Dr. King spent his final hours. The National Civil Rights Museum. Visit, join, give.
Got it. All right, folks, welcome back. Welcome back to the red carpet here in Memphis, the National Civil Rights Museum. And so we're about to end this, about to shut this down, and then we're actually going to go inside for the program. And so here's what's also going to be happening. We're not going to be live streaming the program. I'm going to be doing backstage interviews with all the different honorees and catching them backstage. And then also this weekend on Roland Martin Unfiltered, on all of our channels, we're going to be live streaming all of this entire program. And so we're looking forward to that because, and here's why we're doing this. First of all, let me say this here. I appreciate Terry Freeman and Faith Morris with the museum asking me to be here, asking us to be able to present this. One of the reasons why we are doing this show, one of the reasons why we launched Roland Martin Unfiltered, is because events like this don't get covered by national media. Events like this, no one pays attention to. They happen all across the country. There are people who are doing amazing things, who are doing great things that no one hears about. And then this is important because, and this is critical, when you look at what's happening in media, especially on black media, especially black television networks, look at what's happening with black websites. We're so locked and loaded on entertainment, on reality shows, that too many of our people are not being fed information, not being fed historical information as well. And so by us being here, we're providing a window into another world, frankly, for African Americans. And so this weekend, we're going to take this, we're going to actually be able to edit it. And then this weekend, we're going to stream Saturday and Sunday the 27th Annual Freedom Awards. And so we certainly appreciate that. Also, some of the interviews we'll be doing here as well. And so I want you to stay tuned for that. Now, tomorrow, folks, you don't want to miss this here. Tomorrow, I'll be leaving Memphis tomorrow morning very early, and I'll be in Los Angeles 1 hour. Great debate, sitting down with Jason Whitlock of Fox Sports. Jason has ticked off a whole lot of black people with his thoughts on a variety of issues. Well, I'll be talking to him tomorrow, just the two of us, one-on-one, asking him the questions you have been wanting answers to. And we'll also be broadcasting live from L.A. on Friday as well. I'll be there for a Taste of Soul. Some 350,000 African Americans, they are going to be at Taste of Soul in L.A. And so we're looking forward to being able to share all of that with you. And again, that's why this show matters. And so, again, I'm about to leave this here, but to run inside to get to work. I want to thank all of you for watching as well. Don't forget, folks, to support Roland Martin Unfiltered. Your donations, joining our fan club, make this possible. We want you to go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com to please sign up to join our fan club. Our goal is to get 20,000 people over the course of a year to donate at least $50 each. And the reality is we are at about 800 or so, and so we want to actually get to 1,000 and then begin to build upon that for the folks who are joining our fan club. And so go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, that is it for me. We certainly hope you enjoyed this, and we'll have more of this on this other weekend. Again, we thank everybody again from the 27th Annual Freedom Awards here for the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Holla!
It was the 31st of August in 1962 that 18 of us traveled 26 miles to try to register to become first-class citizens.
The National Civil Rights Museum is an American story. Sit with Rosa Parks on the Montgomery bus. Join the movement at the multi-touch, multi-user smart table. See where Dr. King spent his final hours. The National Civil Rights Museum. Visit, join, give.